prices on senior-friendly campervans are breaking in a way nobody expected, and honestly, it feels like the dealers slipped up. Vans that were untouchable a year ago are suddenly hitting the market at shock-level discounts. Not junk, not stripped-down rentals, real, dependable rigs that older travelers actually want, quietly dropping into affordable territory. But here's the twist. These aren't random deals. Every one of these price cuts has a hidden reason behind it. And if you don't understand why they're happening, you could either score the buy of the year or get stuck with someone else's problem. So let's break down the 5 campervans seniors should be watching right now. Winnebago Solis Pocket 36B. Some market shifts announced themselves loudly, but the movement around the Winnebago Solis Pocket 36B arrived with a quiet certainty that demanded attention. It did not rely on headlines or bold promotions. It showed itself in updated dealer sheets, discounted wholesale numbers, and the unmistakable pattern of a model being repositioned because the economics around it left no other option. That subtle pressure formed the backdrop for one of the most meaningful price corrections happening right now. The first clue appeared in relisted units across several regions. Prices that once held firm near $128,995 began appearing closer to $109,900. That shift became more pronounced when auction lanes confirmed even deeper reductions. Several units cleared around $74,500, written plainly in auction summaries that needed no interpretation. Those numbers carried the weight of real adjustments rather than promotional reductions. They showed cost, pressure, and timing converging all at once. Understanding why this happened means looking beyond the sticker. Over the previous cycle, demand forecasts leaned optimistic. Manufacturers anticipated a continuous rise in compact campervan interest, and production schedules reflected that confidence. But the broader financial environment changed. Floor plan interest rose, insurance costs increased, and dealership overhead tightened. When units like the Winnebago Solis Pocket 36B remained on lots longer than expected, each passing month added financial strain. Dealers facing compounding charges needed to move the models, creating the bottleneck. And the simplest route was price realignment. The model itself remains steady and dependable. The layout prioritizes simplicity, with features chosen for long-term practicality rather than temporary appeal. Step height stays manageable. Storage sits at functional levels. The bed platform avoids awkward climbing. The interior design keeps everything within easy reach, creating a cabin focused on usability rather than spectacle. Even the electrical components follow a grounded philosophy, using accessible systems instead of complicated automation that often fails over time. This is the kind of structure that ages well because it relies on what works, not what trends. That practicality becomes important when interpreting the current pricing window. A model built with dependable fundamentals does not lose value because of mechanical instability. It loses value when supply surpasses demand, when forecasting misses, and when dealership economics force inventory correction. The Winnebago Solis Pocket 36B sits precisely in that intersection. The reduction reflects pressure around it, not weakness within it. Dealership notes reinforce this view. Terms such as aged unit, priority clearance, and floor plan exposure appear repeatedly beside this model in internal documentation. These notes do not question durability. They acknowledge time. Every month, a unit remains unsold adds cost. When a dealership holds several identical vans across different rooftops, the pressure grows faster than retail interest. Reducing the price becomes a financial necessity rather than a tactic. This moment matters because it creates a clear, limited window. Once the backlog moves, pricing does not stay low. It corrects upward as supply normalizes. The Solis Pocket 36B has entered that mid-cycle correction stage where numbers soften before stabilizing again. Anyone watching the market closely can see the pattern forming. Reductions appear, units move, the window closes. The interior of this van plays a role in the continued interest. The cabin avoids fragile parts, choosing materials meant to withstand repeated use. The kitchen configuration stays functional without leaning on gimmicks. The design encourages extended travel rather than brief outings. Those qualities remain valuable even when the price fluctuates. That combination of durability and simplicity is what continues to draw attention, especially now that the numbers printed beside it are lower than they have been in years. As this section ends, the takeaway becomes clear. The Winnebago Solis Pocket 36B did not shift. because it faltered. It shifted because the market around it recalibrated. The correction reflects timing, pressure, and inventory rhythm rather than performance. This shift opens a clear trail toward the following contender, where the story isn't driven by overstock, but by how overlooked engineering quietly reshaped its price. If this one surprised you, wait until you see the next model. Its price drop isn't about overstock, it's about something far more subtle. Burstner Campeo, the C600. Some models fall in price because they lose relevance, but the Burstner Campeo C600 entered a different kind of moment one, shaped by shifting attention, softened turnover, and a quiet recalibration that slipped into the market without the noise usually attached to imported vans. Nothing dramatic happened. No major recall, no structural issue. The correction appeared because the rhythm of supply and interest moved out of sync, and this particular model happened to sit directly in the path of that shift. The first sign came through updated importer sheets. For nearly an entire cycle, the Burstner Campeo C600 held firm around 96,000. Then the adjusted figures landed, showing 82,750 as the new reference number. It was not advertised. It was not pitched as a seasonal promotion. It appeared simply as the new reality. That kind of drop carries weight because it reflects internal pressure rather than marketing strategy. To understand the shift, you have to look at how imported vans move through the system. Shipments arrive in batches scheduled months in advance. If demand softens during that time frame, the remaining units sit longer than planned. Each extra week on a lot adds holding costs, transport fees, storage obligations, and the silent burden of floor charges for distributors. When that pattern repeats across different regions, a correction forms, and models like the Burstner Campeo C600 are the ones that show that correction first. The model itself does not contribute to the decline. Its structure remains one of the most grounded designs in its class. Interior proportions feel balanced. The step height avoids the awkward climb found in taller European imports. The cabin materials stay aligned with long-use priorities. The bed position remains practical, not performative. Storage is structured rather than scattered. The layout avoids fragile features, choosing steady surfaces and straightforward mechanics instead of decorative pieces that often fail after repeated movement. Nothing inside signals a reason for depreciation. The numbers changed for reasons outside the engineering. The shift becomes clearer when you look at how shoppers behave. Many gravitate toward high-tech interiors and futuristic lighting packages. Content trends highlight novelty instead of durability. The Campeo C600 does not chase those trends. It never attempted to. It focused on a simple cabin, steady insulation, and balanced ergonomics. But when excitement moves toward spectacle, practical designs lose visibility. That loss of visibility translates into slower turnover, and slower turnover translates into updated pricing. Dealers and importers understand the rhythm well. When attention drifts, they do not wait for interest to return. They adjust. They revisit numbers. They reclassify certain models as priority movement units. The updated sheets show exactly that type of repositioning. Terms such as aged arrival, slow cycle, and non-trending category accompany the Burstner Campeo C600 across several internal listings. These are not warnings. They are financial signals indicating that the model needs to move before the next shipment wave arrives. Inside the van, the strengths that sustained it for years remain intact. The kitchen layout retains a level, a arrangement that does not force bending or reaching. The upper cabinets open smoothly, built with hardware chosen for weight distribution rather than showmanship. The seating area remains comfortable without requiring complicated adjustments. Even the lighting choices rely on consistent warmth rather than variable effects. These traits give the Campeo C600 longevity, which is why its current price shift has nothing to do with its physical reliability. This correction window holds importance because it does not tend to stay open long. Once the current batch moves, pricing stabilizes again. It always happens that way when a model corrects due to inventory imbalance rather than mechanical decline. The units reposition quickly, and the next cycle returns to normal levels. That creates a narrow but meaningful moment where price and durability align more closely than usual. The Burstner Campeo C600 adjusted not because it weakened, but because the market around it shifted. A practical design met a fleeting imbalance in demand, and the numbers followed that imbalance. That recalibration sets the stage for a model influenced by something far more subtle misinterpretation, not market force, steering its price downward. If this breakdown is helping you see the market more clearly, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And if you have thoughts about how these price shifts are unfolding, share your take below so others can follow the discussion. Possl Road Camp R. Momentum inside the compact campervan market shifts in ways that are not always immediate, and the Possl Road Camp R demonstrates that truth with unusual clarity. Its pricing adjustment did not arrive through loud announcements or promotional banners. It appeared quietly, through relisted units, softened numbers, and a noticeable change in how long each van stayed on dealer lots. That silence carried its own message, pointing toward a correction, caused not by mechanical failure, but by perception, drifting away from reality. That perception shift began with a single misunderstood feature, the sliding wall bathroom. Online discussions exaggerated its complexity, misjudged its durability, and assumed the mechanism was fragile. None of that matched the real-world design. The rail is reinforced. The wall panels lock securely. The expansion system relies on straightforward mechanics rather than delicate automation. Yet, the narrative spread faster than verification, and when enough assumptions circulate unchecked, even a stable model like the Possl Road Camp R feels the pressure in pricing and turnover. Inside the cabin, the reality contradicts the speculation entirely. The layout is intentionally simple, with storage arranged at natural heights and movement kept unobstructed. The sleeping area allows comfortable access without bending or climbing, and the materials follow the traditional European approach of prioritizing longevity over novelty. Nothing inside relies on touchscreens or experimental electronics. Everything works predictably, which is why the correction surrounding the Possl Road Camp R stems not from performance concerns, but from misinformation overshadowing practical engineering today. Pricing confirmed the pattern before any official explanation appeared. Listings in several regions shifted from 69,900 to 58,500, and the reduction repeated across enough platforms to rule out coincidence. These were not distressed units and not refurbished stock. They were standard arrivals, positioned incorrectly in the market because the conversations surrounding them overwhelmed the facts. When visibility declines and assumptions rise, even the most dependable vans experience a downward adjustment right now. Inside the Possl Road Camp R, the strengths that defined the model remain unchanged despite the external market shift. The cabinetry maintains a sturdy feel, the seating retains supportive structure, and the airflow through the cabin stays balanced due to well-placed windows and vents. The lightweight construction avoids unnecessary strain on the chassis, keeping maneuverability intact on tight roads and narrow campgrounds. These are not superficial advantages. They are practical strengths that continue functioning no matter how pricing fluctuates around them. Market corrections, tied to sentiment rather than structural decline, tend to create temporary openings, and the Road Camp R now sits firmly within that window. Dealers recognize the misunderstanding surrounding the sliding wall feature, and instead of waiting for public perception to shift, they adjust numbers to accelerate turnover. This is not a distressed liquidation. It is a recalibration shaped by timing, attention, and the need to move balanced inventory before seasonal demand begins influencing purchasing behavior again in the current cycle. We reach the close of this section with a clearer view of what truly shaped the Road Camp R's repositioning. The correction did not come from weakening construction or failing components. It came from timing, perception, and the steady pressure created when conversation overtakes fact. Moments like this do not last long. As inventory balances and understanding spreads, the numbers stabilize, leaving a brief period where value and durability align more closely than usual during this correction phase today. With that pattern exposed, attention turns to a campervan shaped not by rumor, but by inventory weight-pushing dealers toward sharper adjustments. Thor Tellaro 20A. Pressure does not always roar. Sometimes it shows itself slowly, through numbers that shift just enough to signal something deeper happening underneath the surface. That is exactly how the movement around the Thor Tellaro 20A began. No announcement, no oversized banner, just a pattern visible in listing timelines, adjusted price sheets, and the unmistakable weight of inventory that stayed put longer than dealerships could tolerate. This is the kind of correction that forms quietly, but lands with real financial meaning. The clearest evidence lies lies in the regional inventory records. Several rooftops across multiple states documented extended hold times on identical units. One region alone tracked 73 unsold Thor Tellaro 20A vans, each stretching past its projected turnover date. When that many vans share the same delay, it is never random. It is an unmistakable sign that production forecasts ran ahead of real demand. This model became the one carrying the burden of that mismatch, positioned directly where supply exceeded absorption. Prices followed the pressure. Units originally listed near 117,995 shifted into the mid-90,000 range, often settling around 94,900. Those reductions repeated across enough dealer networks to confirm this was no isolated experiment. The adjustment stemmed from necessity. Floor plan interest does not pause. It accumulates week after week. Holding costs grow. Insurance obligations build. When several units remain unsold across various lots, those costs multiply fast, and something has to give. In this case, it was the sticker. Yet, the Thor Tellaro 20A itself remains structurally steady. Its design leans into simplicity rather than spectacle. Storage compartments sit at reachable heights. The sleeping platform offers easy access instead of requiring awkward climbing. The kitchen components follow a functional layout built for repetition rather than aesthetic presentation. Even the electrical system opts for proven equipment rather than complex, integrated controls. These elements underscore a foundational truth. The correction surrounding this model did not arise from construction issues. It arose from supply meeting friction at the wrong moment. Financial conditions magnified the imbalance. Lending requirements stiffened. Interest rates climbed. Monthly notes grew heavier for anyone considering a new purchase. As buyers recalculated their positions, hesitation spread faster than expected. Slower decisions combined with increased production created a bottleneck. The Thor Tellaro 20A ended up at the center of that bottleneck. Dealers holding multiple units felt the pressure first, and the updated numbers on their sheets reflect that pressure with complete clarity today. Inside the van, nothing signals panic. The driving position remains comfortable, with supportive seating and straightforward controls. The interior walkway avoids cramped movement. The storage beneath the bed stays accessible without forcing heavy lifting. Lighting remains warm and balanced. These are the traits that made the model appealing long before the current correction. They are also the traits that keep it stable now, even as pricing adjusts to the market's new rhythm. When supply overtakes real demand, dealers do not wait for interest to recover. They respond. They reduce. They classify units as priority movement inventory, especially before seasonal cycles shift. Internal wording, such as aged floor stock, planned reduction, and incentive required, accompanies the Thor Tellaro 20A more frequently than other Class B entries right now. Those phrases carry weight. They reflect urgency created by cost, not concern created by quality. Understanding the difference is essential. Dealership economics drive this shift. When identical vans stack up in one region, pricing becomes the only relief valve. Carrying costs add pressure, forcing adjustments. The Thor Tellaro 20A fits this moment, shaped by excess supply and financial strain. Its practicality remains unchanged. The market simply pushed the numbers downward. If you want to stay ahead of these updates as they happen, subscribe now. The next round of pricing changes is already forming, and you will want the numbers the moment they go public. Staying subscribed ensures you never miss the timing window. Coachmen Nova 20C. Some price corrections look superficial from the outside, but the adjustment surrounding the Coachmen Nova 20C carries a different kind of weight, because it was triggered not by declining interest, nor by shifting trends, but by a direct improvement introduced in the newest production run. That change reshaped the numbers instantly, setting the earlier units on a new trajectory, whether dealers planned for it or not. This is the type of correction that forms sharply, holds briefly, and reveals more about the market's internal mechanics than any promotional sheet ever does. The first unmistakable indication appeared inside a distributor bulletin listing the updated figures. For months, the earlier Coachmen Nova 20C units sat firmly around 142,000. That number held steady until the release of the improved configuration. Then the revised pricing arrived, 118,995 for remaining prior year units. That drop did not arrive gradually. It landed all at once. Dealers did not celebrate it. They adjusted because the market left them no alternative. You cannot hold older inventory at premium levels when the updated version sets a new benchmark in insulation and temperature stability. The improvement itself deserves attention. Previous models models of the Coachmen Nova 20C already delivered solid temperature control, but the new insulation package strengthened that stability in measurable ways. Ventilation efficiency increased, heat retention improved. The vehicle's cabin handled shifting climates with greater consistency. None of these changes reflect failure in the older units. They simply represent a better version 1 that naturally repositions all stock built beforehand. When the updated configuration hit the order sheets, every remaining earlier model had to move. Dealers responded accordingly, adjusting numbers to ensure turnover rather than allowing inventory to linger into another accounting cycle. Inside the cabin, the earlier models remain grounded in the same thoughtful design principles that built the Nova series reputation. The twin bed layout avoids awkward climbing, making rest easier. The cabinetry carries a reassuring firmness, proof of materials chosen for repetition rather than display. The kitchen maintains a sensible workflow, placing essentials within easy reach rather than hiding them behind unnecessary mechanisms. Electrical components keep to proven designs, prioritizing usability over complexity. Nothing here suggests a reason for devaluation. The shift came from comparison, not deterioration. Studying the listings further confirms this. Dealers began describing the earlier units using phrases such as pre-update layout, prior year configuration, and last of current batch. These descriptions do not hide problems. They acknowledge timing. Once the new run set a fresh standard, the older stock simply could not command the previous premium. Price alignment followed naturally. This is the type of adjustment seasoned observers recognize immediately. A realignment caused by a product improvement rather than a structural deficiency. The correction also reflects a larger truth about the market. When manufacturers release meaningful upgrades, the ripple spreads quickly. Buyers gravitate toward the latest configuration, pushing distributors to reposition the earlier models at a pace that matches demand. That is the cycle unfolding around the Coachmen Nova 20C. Supply pressure, comparison pressure, and timing pressure all converged. As a result, the earlier units reached a point where value and practicality lined up more closely than they have in previous seasons. The interior still delivers dependable usability with an open walkway, balanced lighting, comfortable bed height, and accessible storage. The adjustment reflects timing, not weakness. Once remaining units sell, prices follow the updated version. For now, the earlier Coachmen Nova 20C sits in a brief moment, where durability and corrected pricing align. Campervan prices for seniors are shifting fast, and models that were once out of reach are suddenly dropping into affordable territory. These changes aren't random, and if you understand what's driving them, you can take advantage of a rare buying window. In this breakdown, we reveal the 5 vans worth watching right now. Before we dive in, comment, and subscribe so you never miss the next update.